As an accountant, it is good for you to have a rock solid knowledge of the IFRSs. So today, I want to summarize IAS 16. Now, IAS 16 is property, plant, and equipment. Now, this is what you need to know as far as IAS 16 is concerned. The first one is recognition criteria. When do you recognize an asset to be a PPE? When do you recognize a PPE? When do you take it into the account? The first one, you must have control. I've explained the difference between ownership and control. Control is the ability to direct that asset to work for you and to prevent others from having access to that asset. So you must have access, a control. When you have control, it means you can recognize. Another one is you must be able to reliably measure the value of that asset. Another one is that future economic benefits must be expected to flow from that PPE to the entity. Now, this is the recognition criteria. So these three must be present. The next thing I want to talk about is initial measurement. For initial measurement, how do you measure PPE according to IAS 16? The first is, that is the initial measurement is at cost. Cost plus directly attributable costs. These directly attributable costs are those costs that you can directly trace, like handling, like professional fees, like borrowing costs, all those costs that can be directly attributable to the cost of that asset. So you add them. In fact, up to dismantling of the site, of the asset as at the end, if you can estimate that in 20 years time, you are going to dismantle that asset, that PPE, and even restore the ground. If you estimate that cost, you must add it to the asset as at the beginning. This is what IAS 16 says. So all directly attributable costs that will bring the asset to its position and its condition, you must add them to the cost of that asset. So initial measurement is at what? Is at costs. But there are things that IAS 16 says you must not add. Let me call them star. The first one, if you remember star, you will always remember it. S is for startup cost. Don't add them. Those expenses, those should be expense, not capitalized. The next one is training. Training costs. Don't add them to the initial measurement. Another one is admin expenses, administrative expenses. Don't add them. And the fourth one is R, that is repairs. Don't add repairs. So after initial measurement, we move to subsequent measurement. Subsequently, there are two models permitted for you to measure PPE according to IAS 16. The first one is cost. The second one is revaluation model. So for cost, you are looking at the costs less depreciation and impairment. And then for revaluation, you are looking at fair value. Sometimes you might look at conditions might change and then the asset could be revalued. So these are the two models that are allowed. You can use the cost model, you can use the revaluation model. Good. After that, let's look at the depreciation. Depreciation rules. The standard says you have to systematically spread the depreciation. That is the reduction in the value of that asset as a result of tears, wears, obsolescence, and etc. You have to systematically spread them over the useful life of that asset. Next, we go to subsequent costs. Subsequently, what are the costs? You have costs. Any cost that will enhance the asset's performance, those are costs that should be added. Then if there are also costs that will bring about the extension of the useful life of the PPE, also you will also add them. Okay, but when there are routine repairs and maintenance costs, those ones are supposed to be expense. So next we go to what we call derecognition and disclosures. So an asset, at the end of the day, once the asset is no longer expected to generate benefits, then you have to derecognize it. You have to remove it from the books. Okay, and then if there's any gain or loss, it has to be recognized in profit or loss. So disclosure, IAS 16 also requires clear disclosure of depreciation methods, useful life of the asset, revaluation, details, revaluation, movement during the year, providing transparency. All this will provide transparency for users of financial information. So if you remember this about IAS 16 on property, plant, and equipment. I think you already know IAS 16. Thank you.